Well, my first urgent job on arriving in Marina Taina near Papeete in Tahiti was to get the first reef on the mainsail sorted out. The line had been a part of the line had been stuck inside the boom, impossible to get to at sea, and the only way to get to it, in fact, was to take the after end of the boom off in order to try to get inside the boom, which is very long. So what's called a snake, a long metal line, flexible metal line, was used to try and get hold of something, and that worked out eventually, but took a long time. So it was really nice to have my friend Mike come by to help me do that. The next major problem that cropped up was trying to get shore power. Because we're into 220 in French Polynesia as opposed to 110 volts in North America, I had to switch over, and I completely forgot that inside the transformer there was an important switch to make, and which I didn't. So I'm afraid I've killed my isolating transformer, and I'm going to have to get a new one, which is going to be pretty expensive. Fortunately, I was able to make use of a little shore charger so that I could take on power if I needed it. But the next big job was to have the new GPS, which should have been seen by the plotters and was not being seen, to sort out why that was happening. And Manuter came by. He pointed out that the old system, which was partly in use by the Vancouver electrician, which he should have replaced, had not been replaced by a fresh wire and a new connection. So that's what he did. And once the new wire, the new cable, I pushed that through to the chart table. It took quite a time to do that, and then pulled out the old wire, the unnecessary wire. Everything was fine, and that was a really, really good job to have done. So this is what working on the electrics in the boat ends up looking like. Had to get into there around the back of it. The wire came down the pole. I've got to get rid of this excess wire now, cable, and all of that wire had to go, or one of it had to go all the way forward to the chart table. But we got there in the end. Well, it's really nice to be able to get rid of an old unwanted cable. That's what I'm doing at the moment. It's been replaced by this blue-black marine cable to give a better connection to the external GPS. So the old wire, dating from Lord knows when, a long time ago, it was used to a bad connector, and that gave me all the external GPS problems with it not being seen by the plotters. Now that that's been resolved, it's really good to get rid of one of the old cables. I mean, there's quite a mess of cables here anyway, so to get rid of one that isn't in use anymore, often they get left behind by lazy electricians. So if I can ever get rid of an old one, I try to do that, just to simplify things here. So really nice to, I've got to cut quite a few cable ties, everything gets tied in, and so it gets a little bit complicated, but it just needs a bit of patience, a bit of time, and we get the job done. So that will happen soon enough. Just having to pull it through. I'm not getting rid of all the cable ties that have been used, because sometimes I can, as you can see, I can pull the cable through, but I have just got rid of one a little bit lower down that was stopping me from being able to do what I'm doing now. Okay, good. We'll have to redo those cable ties after. I mean, this came all the way from the aft cabin, plus a load of spare, of course, which is why it's so long. It will be so nice to get rid of one of these unnecessary cables. I'm sure there are a few more in here, but unless you're certain, you don't want to start trying to get rid of anything. You've got to be absolutely sure that it's the redundant one. So now I've got to get into that box. So the box is here. Here's the, this is the cable I've just been pulling, and it's going into the box right here. What's it saying? Sea-Talk out. Yeah, coming out to the Sea-Talk bus, as was in the old days before I changed the system. Unfortunately, it was only later that I appreciated what I'd done. I then, instead of opening the box, which was a little bit difficult, I decided to cut the cable at that point, thinking it was dead, and it was not. So I caused a major problem later on. So there we go, one less cable in the chart table there to add to all that mess of wires there. Good job done. So now, of course, what we have to do just to finish off the job is to tidy up a few more cable ties back where I took ones off, and maybe a few more cable ties to hold things in place a bit better. Okay, so that's that mess of wires tied down in place, so it's not floating around quite so much. Means I can close the front of the panel a bit better. Fantastic, all back together, neat and tidy. A quick trip into Papeete with Philip very kindly offering to take me in. He's just retired as the marina manager here, and I needed to go in to get a form to enable me to get duty-free diesel, which obviously saves quite a bit of money, and I need to top up my tanks. I'll be doing that very soon. And also I was able to get into the Harbour Master's office to get clarification on the slightly complicated procedures for boats moving around within the islands here. So that was good. That was all a very good job done, and gave me a little trip into Papeete town. In the marina, I just could not resist taking a photo of this notice warning of falling coconuts. And what a lovely sunset view from the restaurant in the marina. Absolutely beautiful one evening. And another lovely view over the coastline of the north of Tahiti was from Mikey's place high up on the hillside above. And we're going on a tour of Tahiti. A beautiful traditional roof here in the museum. Lovely. With the matting in the roofing. Unfortunately, at this point, my phone died, so I have no video, but I've lots of photos donated by the friends I was with. So here we have the lovely traditional entranceway to the museum, which I gather has only just been opened again after 4 years of renovation and reorganising. Absolutely wonderful museum and well worth a visit. So I'll just pause the commentary while just putting in every now and then a comment about what we're looking at. So all of these objects, all these items were obviously in the museum. This was an enormous iron pot used for rendering down the fat used on a whaling boat. From the museum, we moved on to a marae, which is an area where traditional rituals were held, and the black volcanic stones of the area, of course, were made use of in constructing these big platforms. Looking inland from the coast of Tahiti, the dramatic mountains are always well in view, and often with their peaks up in the clouds. We very nearly didn't stop at what are called water gardens and grottos, but the 3 caves, or grottos so-called, were in themselves very interesting, and the water gardens constructed around in the area were lovely, in fact. So that was another worthwhile visit. In the gardens, a lot of the very lovely plants were very well labelled, so that was definitely a good stop to have made. So leaving the water gardens, we then headed on down towards what is called Tahiti Iti, meaning Little Tahiti, as opposed to Tahiti Nui up in the top end, and wanted to see that part of Tahiti, and also to visit what should have been a surf competition, but on the Sunday that we were there, the waves were just not big enough, and they'd had to cancel the actual competition, but people were still having a lot of fun and games. And I just took this photo of the looking out to where the surf is, which is way out in the distance. So leaving Tahiti Iti, it was back up towards Tahiti Nui. There's a very small strip of land joining the two, and up the east coast to get up near the top end where there's this very, very, very high cascade waterfall. Not far away on the east coast in the north end of Tahiti was a rather nice blowhole, which I haven't seen or heard that many. The video unfortunately doesn't do justice. It actually was making quite a dramatic noise every now and then, but very interesting and lovely bit of the coastline. Then it was on to Venus Point, and we just got there as the sun had set. Beautiful light and a beautiful park area. A lot of people enjoying themselves on a long weekend Sunday, and lovely to see the lighthouse in the sunset coloured sky. Of course, I'd seen with its white light flashing as I came down to Tahiti as I arrived from the Tuamotus not that long before. So a very, very good good trip all in all. I was very pleased the next day when Marina came to check over my electrical problems, which turned out to be a lot less of a problem to resolve than I thought, and I was able to get away finally. Travis and Michelle came by to help me get away and to help with the refueling, and then I was finally on my way to Moorea.